I decided to come live tonight. It is night. It is night. It is night. And I've been putting off this night for a few days, honestly. Because I was a little bit nervous. I'm coming up here. And I believe I overcame it. Okay, with everything that's been happening, like with judgments and warfare, and knowing that my faith is where it is. My faith looks way different than my immediate people, okay? Because see, with me, when I put my energy towards something, I don't just stop, okay? I don't stop. And I kind of like what Grant Cardone would say, I kind of like obsess over it. But like, I don't like the word obsessed because it's like a negative, like, it's associated with like a lot of negative things. So, you know, I really have taken the Bible to a whole nother level than the people that I know, right? I study it. It's the first thing I'm looking at in the morning, throughout my day, and the last thing at night. Like, that's just how it is. Because it's like, now that I know that there is a Heavenly Father, right? There is a Creator out there in heaven. And it wants me to be successful. It wants me to know the right and the wrongs. You know, it wants me to do right. It wants me to rely and depend on Him, right? And like, when I'm reading, like, my journey genuinely started over Zoom calls. My journey started over Zoom calls from individuals from California, from believers in California. And I still have the notes here in this college 3 subject book here. It started with 2 to 3 different California believers, and we was just on Zoom calls. And, you know, it was just a random LinkedIn connection that led to this. December 4th of 2024, to be exact. Right? And that's when I downloaded the app on my phone. So I've had the app on my phone for over a year now. And that's how long it's been since I started this journey. In studying, right? I learned how to pray. Well, I listened in, right? Because like, at that time, I was in the space of struggle. That right there was the time of famine for me and my family. That was the time of like, that's where division started happening in my family. I'm just being 100% transparent. You know, I am using my discernment and I know what's happening here, you know, but just letting you know how God has been showing up in my life. Before I even knew he showed up in my life. These calls took place right when there was famine happening in my life. Okay, where it was tough. Right, because investing in real estate in the very beginnings, it was tough. And we thought we had it all under control. And we didn't. It was falling apart. And that it did in time. And then these individuals reached out to me randomly. And so I accepted the invite to partake into Bible study. I've never really done Bible study before, like Zoom call twice a week, studying, learning, opening up, downloading the Bible for one, and then reading scriptures and hearing prayers and all these different things. Right? So, you know, I started learning the origin of words from religion and relationship, and understanding that there was a difference between the information and then human information. So how the information, when it comes to biblical times, like before Christ and after Christ, like it's a lot of misled information in there, and that's why it's very important to have discernment, or have a relationship with Christ. Therefore, you don't even have to go through all the riffraff, right? So, you know, the question that they asked me was, what happened and how did we as people lose connection? For me, right, I can say that for me, I may have got lost along the path when I just wasn't seeing it or being taught or reminded the way that I needed or whatever, like for myself, you know, like just I don't know, like, because really most of my life I felt like I was in control of it, right? I felt like I was making all of the big girl decisions that I needed to make, right? I was doing everything that I was basically told to do. I was doing things that was making everybody else happy, and I believe at that time that making everybody else happy would make me happy, and it wasn't. Honestly, it wasn't really making me happy, and it was really like weighing on me. I didn't turn to, like, there was times though where I did end up going to church throughout the years, where I was going to church, but it was like, it was leading me to, I don't know, like I was going to church, I was sitting in churches, and some of them just wasn't fitting, like it wasn't sitting right in my spirit. I just didn't like going, honestly. Like I didn't like sitting there and people staring at me and asking me questions that I didn't know the answers to. It was making me feel uncomfortable. So I left a few different churches that probably would have been able to help me before I got to this point, but it's okay. You know, it's probably been times in your life too where, you know, there was opportunities that went over our head, right? a lot of situations, especially when it came to learning to listen to myself, right? Because it's like when we sit and we realize like we don't know a lot, really much, other than what we see and what someone tell us, right? And that's pretty much what we take it as, because that's what I did. I believed everybody else before I believed in myself. And I had to learn how to do that by, like, what it looked like probably on the outside is me pushing everybody away. I had to sit by myself for many years to learn how to listen to God. Like, it took a long time before I got to that point. Okay, it took a lot to get to that point, because I used to be like this. I wanted to be with somebody, had to be with somebody, because I felt like I was alone. I felt like I was going through things that I needed someone to like witness with me. Period. But it wasn't a journey for everybody else. It was a journey for me. And that could be the same thing with you, right? Or somebody you know. That, you know, they're going from person to person. Like, but it's a journey that you have to take on your own. You can't take everybody with you. You know, a wise guy told me that. And I appreciate that wisdom. So, moving forward. So I had to trust myself. And when I started trusting myself, listening to myself, I started making moves, right? I started having like really deep contemplation. Like, I was really thinking on levels that I wasn't thinking on before, like when I was around other people. Because my surroundings was quiet. I literally had to leave out the big cities to hear. Right? I had to leave out the big cities to hear, because there was so much going on when I was in the cities. And I was just trying to keep up with everybody. But when I did find that serene location for me to be at peace, and essentially it was just me, my children, you know, and I was in the present. And I was able to basically follow intuition, right? Because I didn't know what intuition was until I got to that place of stillness, until I got to that place of rest, basically. Because I didn't know all of this before, you know. I'm reflecting and knowing now, but then it was something else, right? Like in my mind, I was just like survival. But at the same time, my life was already being structured so therefore I can be in a state of mind which is peace and restful, you know, and in the present. To be able to obtain the information that I needed to move forward. Because before I wasn't. So intuition kicked in then. And then so I started trusting that much. At that time, it was that much trust. For real. Like, yo, The flashbacks are wild. But it was that much. And I started just trusting the process. It was just trusting the process. And I'm telling you, it was times where I'm like, you know, like how when you're on that fence, right? And when you're on that fence, you're like, trust the process. The other side is like, but if I do this, I know I can get here, do this, da, 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 da. Like, you know, you mapping out your whole life. But I knew mapping out my whole life didn't work for me before. Right? Mapping out my life did not work for me before. That's how I ended up being where I was when I was ignoring my intuition, when I didn't have boundaries, when I wasn't taking accountability, when I wasn't doing all those different things, right? But I was in people pleasing. So it was like I couldn't do the same things. You know, I couldn't have the same conversations. I couldn't be around the same people. I couldn't do and I didn't, right? So hold on. So I think I like this. It's cute. So looking for my dog. He normally in here, but I didn't have any of those things. So of course I started learning, and I was noticing a difference. It was like the veil was thinning, as they would say. Like the veil was thinning, and it was an interesting experience. So my intuition became stronger, and I started following it. I started going along with it. Although I was nervous, although I was afraid, although I was going through it, like, when I say I was going through it, that's exactly what I mean. When I started trusting my tuition, once I started shifting from old to new, my radar of like spiritual, emotional was just going off, and I didn't have nobody to really call or anything like that. So then eventually I ended up putting myself in therapy. And therapy isn't a bad thing, guys. Okay? One thing is, I promote therapy at every moment that you can. Myself and my children, we receive therapy at least once a year. Okay? That doesn't mean that when you go to therapy, that it's like where you are out of it. You know, for me, I literally didn't just have nobody to talk to. So I went to a professional who knew a little bit about the human mind, and I paid them for their services to help me understand a little bit more, right? So I use that as a resource to educate myself on what was going on up here and why it was looking the way it was looking in my life. So once I learned what I learned going to therapy about the human mind and the human emotion, you know, I started making changes. I started taking the advice, and the changes started happening. So you don't necessarily, if you have people, you know, that God put in your life, okay, that God put in your life, then go for it. If not, ask God, you know, or trust your intuition and move the way that your intuition is guiding you. But of course, always use your discernment. Always. Okay? Always. So, after that, I could definitely say I started using the tools and the advice and tips that the professionals was able to suggest. I started noticing changes, and then I also started working on with my children, right? I started doing everything that I was learning. Everything that I was learning, I was slowly teaching my children, even at these little bitty ages, right? So I started teaching them, explaining to them, right? To the point where everybody is like, oh my gosh, your children are so smart. Oh my gosh, your children are... Because of what I went through. I don't want that for them. So, learning to listen to myself was also learning to trust my intuition in the very beginning. Mind you, again, this is in my early 20s, okay? And mind you, in my early 20s, I was popping them babies out. Pop, 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 pop. I was popping them babies out. So in my early 20s, learning to listen to myself was learning to listen to my intuition, trusting in my intuition. Then it was a part where I had to learn to not over-explain things. Okay? Because see, when I was in a place where I didn't have many people in my circle, because it was a lot of people that I cut off in my life. I had one friend for a couple years, and I literally had to cut her off. I had no choice. And that was it, right? That also meant family members, workplaces. I had to cut off a lot of good relationships that I thought was good. So when I actually started, when God started allowing people to come into my life, I guess like the test to see where I was, a lot of over-explaining started happening, where it was like, started over-explaining things, and over-explaining led to like arguments and all those different stuff, right? Just how you don't understand. So yeah, that's that. And I later learned in the book, right, that over-explaining yourself is a no. Right? So, no over-explaining. So after a while, I just shut my mouth, throw away the key. And that took some time too, because it was some people that was dear to me, right? Just, I saw as apples of my eye, right? Like the brightest star in the night sky, the most red plump strawberry in the bunch, the one you're gonna save for last because you know that one is the juiciest. I was holding these individuals to a very high, because that's how I cared about them, So I felt like they deserved, like, every explanation. And, like, regardless what I think that someone may deserve, it may not be the right, like, move, the right choice. Because at the same time, it's like, I had to think of it like this, like when you explain something, because this is what clearly what the book is stating. It's like when you explain something one time, you say what you need, you explained it that one time, that's it. Why keep going back and explaining it another way, and then another way, and then you're starting to lose your patience. Then you're starting to get involved with your emotions, right? So I had to learn how to reel it in, reel that in, right? Because over-explaining is just a bunch of words, and if someone don't get it, it's like when you go to the police department, or we go to the airport, right? And they have those signs that say, do not bring X, Y, and Z to the airport. Don't bring these many ounces or this length of something through the airport because it will be confiscated, right? So it's like, if you can walk through the airport and you learned your lesson that first time, because now, mind you, like I went through this situation a couple years ago when I had brought like a whole, what you call it? What is that thing? Flat iron. A whole full length flat iron to the airport. No, it wasn't a flat iron. It was, I had a 32 ounce of like a Victoria's Secret lotion. And it smelled delicious, okay? And they confiscated it. So now when I go through the airport, I know not to take a gigantic 64 ounce lotion bottle because it's going to get taken away. No one has to explain that to me again. Now I know that I'm not going to go through the airport with a gigantic hair flat thing because I don't want that taken away, right? No one has to explain to me that adultery is a thing and consequences could fall on me. No one has to explain that to me, right? No one has to explain to me that if I walk out in the road, that I will get tackled by a lot of vehicles. No one has to explain that or over-explain that to me. So therefore, when you are having conversation with somebody, understand that the things that's coming out your mouth are just as important than the sign at the airport. You only have to say it once. Just like when your parents told you not to go play in the road. They only have to say it once. So don't go over explaining yourself. I had to learn that. It's important because it can stem to other things. Okay? And then, so learning to listen to myself was trusting in my intuition, not over explaining myself, because what I say is what I mean, right? And that's it. No other type of explanation is necessarily needed if I'm saying what I'm saying clearly. And I had to also understand that staying in any situation because I was hopeful was more toxic than anything else. It reminds me of that saying, is like, overstaying your welcome, right? Staying because you are hopeful that something will change. The only person I was hurting was myself. Nobody else. These are really tough experiences, lessons that had to be taught in my early 20s. Very tough. You know, it took a good little minute for me to realize when I was actually wanted. You get what I'm saying? Because just staying to stay, you're like, I've been lying to myself for so many years. You know, so like when someone actually wanted me, it was like cat and mouse. Because staying because you're hoping that the circumstances will change, that someone will see you, appreciate you, value you, love you, see you, hear you, and just hoping one day that it'll all change. Don't do it. Go. If that's you now, don't do that. Leave. Because what I experienced was a lot of the same issues. Like every example that I'm giving you, it staying because I was hopeful. I'm pretty sure my intuition was telling me I needed to leave and was allowing me to see. Then I was ignoring a lot of red flags. Ignoring red flags doesn't help anybody. And it doesn't help the person that you're trying to protect. You're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to protect the circumstance, the situation, or whatever it is. Because it doesn't have to just be romantic, right? It can be any situation. Your workplace, family, friends, community, anywhere. 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 Staying because you are hopeful that something will change is not it. Because all that's going to do is cause resentment. You're going to resent. You're going to resent everything. Because it's just meaningless. Because you're trying to hold on to something that's already so listen to your intuition. Don't know what that is? Don't know what it is? That's okay. I know in my experience that I did find a lot of moments where I was following my intuition into a lot of quiet places. I'll just follow my intuition down the street. I'll follow my intuition going to the state. I'll follow my intuition, right? And I found peace little bit by little bit. I was able to sit and gaze at the sky. Just slow down. Hear and listen to the birds pick a flower. And if it led me to a park, I get to sit and hang on the monkey bars and swing on a swing. Go down a slide. Nobody looking because I might get stuck. You know, or sit in the sandbox and make shapes, little messages, right? But the journey getting there is what really mattered, because I had to trust the process. I had to trust that my intuition was taking me somewhere safe, somewhere I was able to connect and reflect and be at peace just for a moment, to realize what I needed, that it wasn't about anybody else but me, and where I was, where I needed to be, what I needed to focus on, what I needed to let go, and where did I want to go? Where could I go? And became hopeful that I'll see a sign. And in time, I did. And you will too. Because that's how it is. Regardless if it's regardless if you learn, right, through the trials of life without ever picking up a Bible. We all are connected. That's how it was designed. So, in my early 20s, it was tough. But I'm proud of myself. Because once you overcome challenges that you are facing every day, somebody praying for you. Somebody was praying for me. But I knew change was needed. Because I knew that wasn't it. It wasn't it. And it wasn't. So that's why I like to come here and share this awareness that I have now. This clarity that I have. Because it's beautiful. I don't care who gets tired of me talking about the Bible. I didn't know it was God. I just used to call it universe. Now I call it God. I call him God. Call him Lord, my Savior. Because that's what he is. And so much more. I can definitely say you can call him whatever you want. But you better know who to talk to, your big dog. Okay, but yes, Mel, that's just what it is. And this awareness video with Clarity with Bria, just me. Because it was very important for me to make sure that I sealed this video with a little bit of a backstory, not too much of a full story or dropping like situations and like names or anything like that. You know, I just know that as one human being to another, right? One human being to another, that we all go through similar situations. Similar. It looks familiar. It may sound familiar. But what's important is that we learn from each other. We learn from our downfalls. Because if we're not learning from our downfalls, then we're just bound to do them again. And repeating patterns is not good. It's not good. It doesn't do any good. So I'm gonna make it my business to come here and share my awareness in my personal life and my experiences and how it all unfolded to be where I am at the moment I come here and share it. Because it's Clarity with Bria. And I ain't going nowhere until it's my time. But right now, I wouldn't be fulfilling my purpose, at least part of it, if I didn't come here to give the glory to the Creator, the master of the blueprint of my life. Because I can tell you, there was no way I was doing this on my own. It was one fool doing foolish things back to back. And I'm just glad and I'm grateful that I'm one of the ones that was able to hear what he had to and see what I needed to see. That was a lot to unpack, okay? That was a lot to unpack. So I think I'm gonna end it here. right? And I'm gonna go into the next topic, right? So if any of my storyline segments of some sort, if they all align with you, they sound familiar, then just stick around. Because there's something that we can learn from each other. We can learn something. Clarity over chaos. That's what it is, right? Clarity over chaos. You gotta make sure you got that clarity. Make sure you have that awareness tight too, okay? So, before I end, let's make sure we're walking away with trusting our intuition, okay? Not over explaining ourselves. Remember that airport sign, okay? Remember that saying, don't play in the road. And if your butt got hit a couple times, then I bet you ain't going that road no more. You hear me? And don't stay because you hoping for change, right? So be the change, okay? Change right in front of their faces. Be the change. And through all of that, make sure you turn around and you help somebody else. All right? Okay, so that's all I got. So thank you for tuning in, listening in. I'm gonna go and do my new thing, and y'all have an amazing rest of your evening, morning, or wherever it is that you guys are doing in time frames that you are in. So, see you later, alligator, and keep your nose out of the pie. I don't know. Bye, y'all.